Recently, more human beings have flown to the moon than have dived to the deepest spot on Earth.
What was that moment like for you?
It was just wonderful to be in one of the most remote places on the planet with a vehicle of my own construction.
All right, buckle up, because today we're diving into a real-life mystery that makes science fiction look tame. For decades, the deepest reaches of our own planet have held secrets that defy logic, and until recently, more human beings had actually flown to the moon than had ever explored the absolute bottom of the Earth's oceans. Let that sink in. We've sent people to another celestial body more often than we've explored the alien world right beneath our waves. And for years, scientists were scratching their heads over strange anomalies in one specific spot, the Puerto Rico Trench. They wrote them off as equipment glitches or weird coincidences. But then, a few years ago, a routine mapping expedition turned into one of the most unsettling deep-sea discoveries in modern science. And it all started with a pulse. Now, you might be wondering, why are we only hearing about this now? Great question. Because what's been uncovered down there is so profound, so mind-bending, that it threatens to rewrite everything we thought we knew about life, physics, and maybe even Earth itself. Most people think of Puerto Rico as a sun-drenched paradise. All beaches and piña coladas, but this isn't just a postcard. For a relatively small island, it's an ecological and geological wonderland. Mountains, deserts, rainforests, even glowing bioluminescent bays, and vast subterranean cave systems. But its most astonishing secret? It lies far offshore, completely invisible to the casual eye. Just north of the island, the seafloor plunges into one of Earth's most extreme environments, the Puerto Rico Trench. At its deepest point, it measures an astonishing 480 feet. That's over 5 miles straight down, making it the deepest point in the entire Atlantic Ocean. But depth alone doesn't make it extraordinary. This trench is a colossal geological battleground. It's where the North American tectonic plate is being violently forced underneath the Caribbean plate. This constant grinding friction generates massive earthquakes, triggers terrifying tsunamis, and creates strange acoustic anomalies that have been recorded all the way on the island's southern coast. Yet, beyond these tremors and the crushing pressure, a different, far more unsettling kind of mystery has slowly been unfolding for decades, one that would eventually shake the scientific community to its core. Back in the 1970s, scientists started noticing something seriously off about the trench. Objects in freefall here accelerated differently than expected. Instruments recorded a gravity anomaly of negative 380 milligaules, the most extreme negative reading ever documented on Earth. This wasn't just a slight variation. It meant gravity in this specific region was inexplicably weaker than anywhere else on the planet. Geophysicist Peter Molnar bravely suggested that something incredibly dense might be hidden far beneath the surface. Theories flew around: a collapsed ultramafic slab, metallic ore deposits, ancient tectonic residue. But none of it could fully explain the sheer breadth or the stubborn persistence of this anomaly. The trench simply refused to give up its secrets. At the very same time, marine biologists were charting bizarre migratory patterns. Certain whale species, usually known for their long, predictable arcing migrations across the ocean, would loop erratically around the trench. Some, disturbingly, just never emerged. Deep-sea submersibles, launched by research teams from esteemed institutions like Woods Hole and NOAA, recorded low-frequency vibrations that simply didn't match any known tectonic profile. It was clear something profoundly odd was hiding in the Puerto Rico Trench. But the world, it seemed, wasn't quite ready to face what it was. Then, in 2019, an ambitious new effort began to unfurl beneath the undulating surface of the Puerto Rico Trench. Scientists deployed a sophisticated network of passive hydrophones along the trench's eastern ridge, marking the start of a long-term acoustic monitoring project. These devices were specifically designed to listen to the sounds of the deep ocean, capturing data that had never been collected before from one of the most remote places on Earth. The initial goal was pretty standard: study seismic activity, marine life communication, and other natural phenomena within this dark, mysterious abyss. For weeks, the hydrophones picked up absolutely nothing out of the ordinary. The usual oceanic hum filled the silence, whale songs echoing across miles of water, low-frequency tremors from distant earthquakes, and the occasional eerie groan of the seabed as the immense water pressure molded the deep. To the researchers, it was business as usual. They had no reason to suspect that this routine calm was about to be violently shattered. Then in early 2020, the first truly inexplicable anomaly occurred. One of the hydrophones, placed deep in the trench's abyss, began to pick up a sound unlike anything the researchers had ever encountered. It was a rhythmic pulsation. This wasn't random, it was precise, repeating every 9 minutes and lasting for a full 45 seconds each time. But what truly sent a shiver down the spines of the research team was what came next. Sharp fluctuations in electromagnetic readings accompanied the pulses. This wasn't just sound, it was a phenomenon that clearly had an electrical component. And here's where it gets even weirder. The pulse was not a static noise. It was directional, focused in a way that eerily resembled sonar emissions. And unlike any typical biological or mechanical source, these pulses moved along the depth axis of the trench, as if something was actively tracking along the trench itself. The chilling conclusion, it wasn't a tectonic shift, nor was it some kind of geological anomaly. It appeared to be living. The term biologically modulated sonar found its way into the internal reports, marking a breakthrough that could redefine the very understanding of life in the deep ocean. But the data, because of its sheer enormity, remained highly classified. Researchers, acutely aware of the monumental implications of what they were witnessing, kept it contained within their tight circles, too cautious to release anything without definitive answers. Yet the mystery loomed larger than before. What was hiding down in the trench, and what would happen when the world eventually found out? Now, while geophysicists were focusing on the trench's bizarre seismic activity, biologists had already shifted their attention to the extraordinary array of life that had somehow made a home in these extreme depths. The trench itself is a harsh, unforgiving environment. The pressure down there is over 1,000 times what it is at sea level, and the complete absence of light means any creatures dwelling there must survive in a world of crushing, perpetual darkness. Still, life, in its infinite ingenuity, persevered, and in some of the most peculiar ways imaginable. Giant isopods, creatures the size of dinner plates, scuttled across the ocean floor. These arthropods, eerily similar in appearance to common woodlice, had evolved to withstand the immense pressure and the scarcity of food, becoming efficient scavengers. But their appearance, believe it or not, wasn't what fascinated scientists the most. It was the other, more enigmatic species that made the trench feel like a truly alien world. Glass-like octopuses, their translucent bodies almost invisible in the inky blackness, drifted through the currents. These creatures had developed a unique ability to camouflage themselves, their bodies capable of blending seamlessly with their surroundings, making them nearly undetectable to predators. But the real spectacle came in the form of the bioluminescent jellyfish. These ghostly creatures emitted a soft, eerie glow that lit up the water around them like floating lanterns. It was as if they were carrying their own stars in the depths of the trench, providing brief, ethereal glimpses of life in the otherwise unyielding dark. Their glow wasn't for human eyes, of course, but an invitation to the predators and prey that shared their world. The trench was also home to thriving coral systems, incredibly resilient despite the total lack of sunlight. These corals didn't rely on photosynthesis. Instead, they sustained their growth through chemosynthesis, using chemicals like methane and hydrogen sulfide from the cold seeps within the trench. The deep trench, once thought to be barren, had become a sanctuary for life forms that had adapted in extraordinary ways to survive. These creatures held secrets to how life might evolve in the most extreme conditions, and biologists speculated they could even hold the key to understanding the very origins of life itself. However, and this is crucial, the experts failed to link any of these incredible deep-sea creatures to the strange anomalies their instruments had picked up during the exploration. None of them were responsible for those odd pulses or unknown sounds. Despite being extraordinary in their own rights, these creatures were paradoxically still perfectly normal, and the likelihood that something unnormal, something utterly unprecedented was hiding in the depths of the Puerto Rico Trench was becoming increasingly higher. This peculiar finding, a place where the boundaries of life, physics, and technology all seemed to blur, undeniably set the stage for more discoveries. But it also raised a terrifying number of questions. What were the true implications of the rhythmic sonar pulses? What other secrets were lurking in those depths waiting to be revealed? The answers, it seemed, would only come with time, and only if the research teams could overcome the very real limitations aspirations of exploring the abyss. And then the data blackout began, as interest in the Puerto Rico Trench reached a fever pitch. A peculiar and deeply unnerving pattern started to surface among the various teams working with long-range autonomous sensors and deep-sea mapping equipment. Between 2021 and 2023, no fewer than 6 independent research initiatives, spanning universities in Europe, Japan, and the United States, reported a series of inexplicable data gaps within their recordings from the trench's deepest, most remote zones. What was initially considered a mere glitch soon spiraled into something far more troubling. It wasn't just a few missing logs or brief lapses in communication. In several instances, entire datasets disappeared without a trace. Instruments that had been designed to operate autonomously in the most hostile of environments deep beneath the ocean's surface had failed in ways that couldn't be easily explained. The data from these missions should have been among the most stable collected in the calm, relatively uniform environment of the trench floor. Instead, the researchers found themselves grappling with an unsettling void. In some cases, the devices were recovered with hard drives that showed signs of complete magnetic erasure. Entire files, crucial information about the trench's composition and seismic activity were simply gone. Backup transponders designed to store redundant data and serve as a failsafe in case of malfunction either failed to activate or returned nothing but garbled, nonsensical strings of characters. One technician from a Belgian research team working on the installation of a new sensor network described the experience as if something pulsed right through the electronics. Not damage, but cancellation. A complete erasure, as though someone or something had deliberately wiped their work. But what or who could possibly do that? Clearly no fish, no cephalopod, no known marine creature had the power to tamper with such high-tech equipment. Initially, the phenomenon was dismissed as a combination of hardware failure and the extreme conditions at such depths. Massive pressures, near-freezing temperatures, and the corrosive nature of saltwater could wreak havoc on even the most sophisticated technology. But as technicians dug deeper into the anomalies, they found that the devices had never even come close to their critical failure thresholds. Temperature, pressure, and salinity remained well within the expected ranges. The conditions, while certainly challenging, did not justify the total disappearance of data. The assumption that these were random, localized failures began to crumble. Under the weight of overwhelming evidence, researchers began to ask themselves, was this a natural phenomenon, or was there something actively interfering with the exploration of this region? The thought of something external influencing the trench's ability to be mapped seemed absurd, yet it was becoming impossible to ignore the mounting evidence. The idea that the trench was hiding its secrets behind a veil of interference was both compelling and terrifying. Was it the trench itself, a part of the planet so ancient and isolated that it had developed an almost sentient resistance to exploration? Or was there something far more sinister at play, an unknown force perhaps, even alien, preventing humanity from fully understanding the depths of the Puerto Rico Trench? Whatever the cause, the implications were profound. A place that had been considered one of the most studied and mapped regions in the ocean was suddenly becoming one of the most mysterious. Then, in 2024, an unprecedented deep-sea mission was launched that promised to finally reveal the unknown. Depths of one of Earth's most mysterious and extreme environments, the Puerto Rico Trench. This international expedition, a collaboration between NOAA, the Schmidt Ocean Institute, and a private biotech firm, was designed to push the very boundaries of human exploration. At the heart of the mission was the Pelagia X7, a cutting-edge autonomous underwater drone engineered for the kind of silent deep-sea navigation required to investigate the trench beyond 8,000 meters. This was the abyss where few have ventured, and fewer still have returned with conclusive data. Pelagia X7 was no ordinary drone. Engineered for silent operation to avoid disturbing the fragile ecosystems it was designed to observe, the drone also featured advanced sensors for extreme depth navigation and the capability to transmit live video footage back to the surface in real time. Its mission was singular but incredibly ambitious: to map the seafloor of the Puerto Rico Trench at a depth that had previously been deemed unreachable by human technology. As the drone descended, it traversed the murky depths with unnerving ease, its cameras capturing the eerily silent ocean floor. The footage revealed vast silt plains stretching out endlessly, and bioluminescent creatures flickering in the periphery, like faint stars in a celestial expanse. For hours, the team marveled at the data being transmitted, but then, without warning, the feed froze. It was as though the drone had entered some invisible pocket of nothingness, the screen going black for what seemed like an eternity. The mission control team held their breath, unsure whether they had lost the drone to the crushing depths or a technical malfunction. When the feed re-established, the team was greeted by a sight that left them paralyzed in disbelief. A form, ethereal and translucent past just meters from the camera lens. It was unlike any known marine species. No propulsion system was visible, and the body's structure defied traditional biological understanding. There were no fins, no limbs, no obvious appendages of any kind. The creature's surface shimmered briefly as it passed through the light beam, almost as if responding to the drone's presence. Then, in a blink, it was gone, disappearing into the darkness, leaving no trace behind. The team was stunned. Was this a mirage? A glitch in the system? The actual footage showed something alive. Undeniably so. Yet, it defied all known forms of life on Earth. The organism had moved with deliberate intention, as if it was aware of its surroundings, and yet no identifiable source of propulsion had been detected. It was as though the creature had been floating in the water, propelled by some unknown force. Worse, this strange translucent being emitted faint electrical signals, as though it was not merely a creature of flesh and bone, but one of unknown biological circuitry. The feed was only interrupted for 4 minutes, but the implications of those 4 minutes would echo for years. The expedition's leader, an expert in marine biology and electrophysiology, could only describe the moment as beyond comprehension. The actual footage, now in the hands of scientists and officials worldwide, raised questions that no one was prepared to answer. Was this a new form of marine life, or was it something far, far more enigmatic? Following the return of the Pelagia X7 drone, a team of marine biologists led by the brilliant Dr. Elise Ferrer began the painstaking task of analyzing the residue found on the drone's hull. This analysis was expected to yield ordinary biological remnants, perhaps traces of plankton or other mundane marine life forms, but what they uncovered was nothing short of extraordinary. The first clue came when the residue was subjected to a basic electric charge in the laboratory. Unlike anything observed in conventional marine organisms, the substance responded to the electrical stimuli. Tiny delicate filaments began to form under the microscope, stretching out like miniature threads only to vanish moments later. This wasn't just some random reaction. It seemed deliberate, as though the substance was alive in a way that defied the biologist's understanding of biology. Pushing forward with the investigation, the team quickly realized that the residue wasn't just organic. It had properties that suggested it operated on an entirely different biological system. Under a more advanced analysis, the researchers discovered that the structure of the organism was not like anything familiar in terrestrial life. The substance adhered to the hull not as a simple biofilm, but as a complex interactive layer. A deeper dive into its genetic makeup was immediately initiated. Genetic sequencing of the residue yielded truly surprising results. The substance lacked many of the key biological markers that typify life as we know it. Upon further investigation, they identified what they believed to be the organism's primary means of energy processing: electrolytic vesicles, microscopic sacs that were capable of storing and discharging ions in a manner that suggested the organism might be tapping into an entirely different source of power. These vesicles were capable of generating their own energy through electrical activity, as though the organism could somehow charge itself by manipulating the electromagnetic fields in its environment. Though the discovery did not immediately suggest extraterrestrial origins, it was impossible to ignore the implications. The creature's reliance on electrolytic vesicles for energy seemed to imply that it had evolved in a habitat completely isolated from the sun's energy, in the crushing depths of the Puerto Rico Trench, where light does not reach and energy is scarce. This organism had adapted in a way that no surface-dwelling life form could fathom. The implications were profound. Were there other forms of life on Earth that had developed in such isolated ecosystems, unseen for millennia? How many other creatures with similarly strange biological systems remained hidden beneath the waves? And perhaps most unsettling, how could this creature with its unique genetic structure and energy-generating abilities interact with or even influence its environment? As the team continued their investigation, they began to realize that this wasn't just the discovery of a new species. It was the discovery of a life form that might represent an entirely different paradigm of biology. The Puerto Rico Trench, long considered a geological curiosity, was now revealed to be a potential cradle for life forms that could redefine the very nature of living systems. This discovery opened up new questions that would take years to explore, but one thing was clear: the biological anomaly found in the depths of the trench was only the beginning of a much larger mystery. In late 2024, a second mission was launched. all to the Puerto Rico Trench with the desperate hope of finally capturing the elusive organism that had stunned the scientific community. This mission, unlike the first, was not only equipped with the absolute latest in autonomous deep-sea exploration drones, but also featured enhanced sonar and electric stimuli capabilities, specifically designed to provoke responses from the depths. The goal was clear: detect the creature again, get clearer imagery, and most importantly, understand what it was. But despite their advanced technology and the vast expanse of their search area, the mission ended in frustrating silence. Despite thorough sweeps of the trench floor with sonar pulses reverberating across the dark abyss and electric stimuli sent deep into the sea, nothing appeared. The team felt a creeping sense of defeat. What was the nature of this organism? Why? Could they not detect it again? Were they simply misinterpreting what they had seen the first time? The doubt began to mount. Yet, just as they were about to write off the mission as a complete failure, something inexplicable happened. The deep-sea microphones, designed to listen for minute acoustic anomalies in the trench, picked up something totally unexpected. First, the pulses seemed erratic and inconsistent, but soon, it became chillingly clear that they were receiving a pattern they had already encountered. The same frequency signature from the first encounter, the one they had initially thought was a random anomaly, was now ringing out once more. The anomaly, however, wasn't where it was expected. This pulse came from a depth deeper than anything they had previously recorded, over 8,400 meters below the surface, in the shadows of a massive tectonic fault where the North American plate is subducting beneath the Caribbean plate, a place of extreme pressure and ancient geological forces. The team sat in stunned silence as the frequency pattern rang through the data logs. It was unmistakable, the same pulsing signature that had responded to the first drone, a near-perfect echo, but something was off. This time the signature was delayed, as if the signal had been transmitted from even farther below. The realization set in slowly. Whatever was down there was far deeper than anyone had imagined. The echoes weren't just an anomaly, they were evidence of something far more complex. Perhaps something that wasn't merely reacting to its environment, but was actively engaged in a communication or environmental response that defied the team's understanding of biological processes. The implications were vast. The creature, if it was indeed the same one, was not just elusive. It was consciously navigating an environment of extreme depth, shifting seismic pressures and magnetic fields. How could it detect and respond with such precision at this level of the ocean's depths? This deepened the mystery even further. Was this truly a biological creature, or had they stumbled upon something entirely new, something that blurred the lines between life and geology, between biology and pure energy? As they prepared for their next expedition, the crew couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that the creature was no longer a mere curiosity. It had become something much more profound, a key to understanding the very forces at the Earth's deepest levels. What it was, how it operated, and why it responded with such precision to signals and environmental disturbances were questions that the world's best minds were now forced to confront. And in the back of their minds, a single thought lingered. Had they already disturbed something that was never meant to be found? So what do you think is hiding down there in the Puerto Rico Trench? Is it an ancient life form that's been silently evolving for millennia, tapping into the very energies of the planet? Or is it something else entirely, something that blurs the line between biology and geology, between life and pure energy? Let me know your wildest theories and deepest thoughts in the comments below. And if this story blew your mind as much as it did mine, please smash that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the unknown. You won't want to miss what we uncover next.